for the student paper. She later moved to Australia when her husband took a job as a mining engineer. That's where Savannah was born, before the family returned to Tucson 2 years afterward. Tragedy struck in 1988, when Nancy's husband Charles died suddenly of a heart attack at 49 while traveling for work in Mexico. Savannah, then 16, watched her mother become a widow, raising 3 children alone. Savannah has since described Nancy as hard, iron granite strong, crediting her mother's resilience. She went to work at the University of Arizona to support her children's education rather than dwelling on the loss. Nancy lived independently in Tucson's Catalina foothills, known for her sharp mind and strong faith. She attended a Baptist church weekly and stayed close to her children and grandchildren. Despite limited mobility and a heart condition requiring daily medication, she maintained her own household well into her 80s. On the night of January 31st, 2026, Nancy had dinner with her daughter Annie and son-in-law, who dropped her at home around 9:50 p.m. It was the last time family saw her before she vanished, an eerie echo for Savannah of the loss she experienced when her father died decades earlier. Hoda and Savannah's relationship predates their fame, going back to when they were young reporters sharing a cramped office and bonding over ordinary things, junk food, chaotic schedules, the daily grind. When they became the first all-female team to anchor a major morning show in 2018, it felt like a personal victory as much as a professional one. Their 5 a.m. conversations over the years touched on faith, motherhood, and the pressures of the job, forging what colleagues describe as an almost wordless understanding between them. That closeness is why, colleagues say, Hoda didn't hesitate to return in February 2026. Not for the spotlight, but because her friend needed someone she trusted to hold down the fort. Having heard so much about Nancy's disciplined parenting style over the years, Hoda reportedly recognized signs of strain beneath Savannah's composed, on-air presence, a daughter more frightened than she let on. What began as a missing person case escalated on February 3rd, 2026, when email reached TMZ and 2 Tucson TV stations demanding $4 million in Bitcoin by February 5th, rising to $6 million, if a second deadline on February 9th passed. The note reportedly referenced specific, unreleased details from the crime scene, lending it troubling credibility with investigators. FBI cyber specialists monitored the wallet address named in the note and detected activity on February 11th, though converting $6 million into cryptocurrency within 48 hours proved logistically difficult for the family. As the second deadline neared, Savannah and her siblings released a video stating they were prepared to pay, but the kidnappers offered no proof that Nancy was still alive, and communication reportedly went silent after the deadline passed. On February 7, 2026, Savannah appeared alongside her siblings Cameron and Annie in an emotional video, her voice steady but strained. She said, "We receive your message and we understand," without disclosing details, and added that the family was ready to pay whatever was asked. It was a striking moment, the family choosing cooperation over the FBI's typical caution against ransom payments. Even so, without proof of life, and with Nancy reportedly having gone a week without her heart medication, the family faced an agonizing gamble. Pay millions with no certainty she was still alive to be returned. By the second week of February, Hoda worried public attention might fade. She began wearing a yellow ribbon on air, and soon the rest of the cast followed, without being asked. Viewers responded by tying yellow ribbons to trees nationwide. And in Tucson, the tribute took on its own momentum with yellow carnations and fabric appearing around the neighborhood. Hoda used the show's platform to spotlight these gestures each morning and had yellow roses placed throughout the studio, a deliberate choice to keep hope, not despair, at the center of the coverage. Away from the cameras, Hoda kept a nightly ritual on Instagram, posting candid photos of Nancy and Savannah with simple captions like, "Bring her home." She used he. For years, Hoda Kotb and Savannah Guthrie have been more than co-anchors. They've been each other's steadiest support. But a real-life crisis has now pushed that bond further than anyone expected, and Hoda, now 61, has opened up about what's been happening behind the scenes at the Today Show. Back in September 2024, Hoda announced she was stepping away from Today after 26 years at NBC. Turning 60 that year had prompted her to rethink how she wanted to spend her time. Her last day anchoring came on January 10th, 2025, a milestone event held in a larger studio at 30 Rockefeller Plaza to accommodate the crowd of fans and colleagues who came to see her off. Her daughters, Haley and Hope, were there to mark the occasion with her. She relocated to Westchester to focus on being a full-time parent. Her decision was tied closely to her youngest daughter Hope's ongoing health needs. Hoda wanted to be present for the everyday moments, breakfast, bedtimes, school pickups. She launched a venture called Joy 101 and began developing a wellness app and spoke fondly about the simplicity of PDA meetings and neighborhood walks. For roughly a year, she stayed away from the demands of morning television. That changed on February 1st, 2026, when news broke that Nancy Guthrie, Savannah's 84-year-old mother, had gone missing from her home in Tucson, Arizona. Savannah left the show immediately to be with her family and assist investigators. Her empty chair beside Craig Melvin became a visible reminder of the unfolding crisis. 8 days later, on February 9th, Hoda paused her retirement and returned to Studio 1A, not as a guest, but back in her old anchor role, stepping in so Savannah could remain focused on her family. It meant giving up her new routine in Westchester, resuming pre-dawn call times, and explaining to her daughters that she'd be back on air for a while. Her return brought a sense of steadiness to the broadcast during an unsettling stretch. She anchored coverage of the search, which at that point involved a person of interest in a mask and speculation about a large ransom demand, while keeping her tone measured. Many viewers recognized that Hoda's presence wasn't about ratings. It was about a promise between friends. Today has long used family as part of its branding, but on February 6, 2026, Hoda showed that the phrase carried real weight. She returned to the anchor desk as the search for Nancy entered its sixth day, sitting alongside Craig Melvin and Shaynell Jones to talk openly about her history with Savannah. Visibly emotional, Hoda told viewers the situation was heartbreaking. To explain her decision to come back, she recalled 2023, when her daughter Hope was hospitalized, and Savannah had been the first person to arrive. "I was thinking, who was first at the hospital when Hope was sick? Savannah," she said, returning to work. In her mind was simply repaying that loyalty. While Hoda anchored from New York, Savannah remained in Tucson, where developments were grim. Investigators from the Pima County Sheriff's Department discovered blood on Nancy's porch that matched her DNA and found that her doorbell camera had been disconnected around 1:47 a.m. the night she disappeared. The FBI was searching for a masked individual carrying a backpack seen on surveillance footage. Hoda used her airtime to keep public attention on these facts, wearing a yellow ribbon in tribute and having the studio decorated with yellow flowers for the Guthrie family. She described Savannah in sisterly terms on air, telling viewers the country was rallying around her dear Savannah in hopes that Nancy would be found safe. It was a notably personal departure from typical anchor detachment. The network also adjusted its plans. Both women had been slated to cover the 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy. Savannah stayed in Arizona instead, and Hoda gave up the assignment as well to remain on the show, a costly decision for NBC, but one that underscored how seriously the family ethos was being honored. Nancy Guthrie, 84, had lived in Tucson for more than 5 decades. Raised in Kentucky and educated at the University of Kentucky, where she worked,